We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for passions. And, it's interesting being 60 years old. Um, in so many ways, I mean, this season of life, I am loving it. It's like, hey, this is the most fun that I've had my whole life. It is so cool, this season of life. And so, um, Ben, what would you like to accomplish, or what do you have on today for your podcast on passions?
I gotta, I don't know. It seems like I have a few things that you could go over. So there's like, I would say three maybe.
All right, lay them
First,
out there, buddy.
first one is people are finding this podcast. I had just had another person that I knew from high school send me this podcast. So it's starting to spread like wildfire.
A little
Um,
scary, isn't it?
yeah, a little nauseating. Gotta be careful what I say.
And why is that?
Believe it or not, a lot of people have an impression of me, which is
Okay.
mostly good for the most part. And a lot of the podcasts on a Saturday morning, one day I could sleep in, I usually have less of a filter. So I'll say what I want, when I want, how I want. And then for some reason, you have a tendency to wild me up. And then we just feed off of each other. And then I say some really stupid things.
Is it stupid though?
Um, Arguably not stupid. Let's just say arguably potentially could get me canceled, which
And so
honestly
why?
not a big deal, but
Okay. So why would
um,
you bring up something that's not a big deal?
because it still affects me. It's still why is it? It's still in my head, you know.
And so I think, what's the difference between ignorant and stupid? Or if you're listening to the podcast, which would you rather be, ignorant or stupid? And so what is ignorant? Ignorant is not knowing what to do. Stupid is not doing what we know. And so in today's world, it seems like everybody thinks they're so smart. It's like, are you? Are you really? And so, Jim Bontrager said, God offends the mind to reveal the heart. So this podcast might offend your mind, and it likely will, and it'll reveal your heart. And then you'll project your heart onto Ben or myself or whatever, which is fine. Do it. I mean, I don't really care. That's one of the benefits of being 60. Um, you know, it is what it is. So do you have a question there, Ben?
Um, how do I how do I close it out with my friends and where it's just like they seem to start saying, "Oh, well, I understand how the way you are, and I understand."
Yeah, they don't. Just they don't.
Yeah. So
Yeah, they
just
don't.
just tell them, nah.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want to do, but somebody watches a podcast, it's like, well, come on and participate. But they don't want to because,
They do.
well, do they? Because if they
Well, I
did,
mean,
they
that's what
would.
they say. They say they do, and I'm
Oh,
just,
they
I don't
say
know.
they
I feel
do,
like,
but they're terrified. They're absolutely terrified. They're
kind of,
afraid. Yeah.
yeah.
And I get it. I get it because you actually have to think like, do you have a position on something? Do you disagree? Well, okay, well, share how you disagree. Like, it's okay to disagree. But the challenge is what they're used to doing is they're used to just throwing up and then hit and run, and they don't want to think about their position. And this podcast it's probably a good idea to think about your position. You can
Right.
judge your perspective, Ben, or you can judge my perspective. It's fine. I thought through why I think the way I do. Other people, maybe not so much. And so you're like your mother, where you care about what people think about you. Me, not so much. I consider what people think about me always. If somebody came on and they, said you're a bigoted, phobic, this and this, I'd be like, okay, let's take a look at that. Let's have a
So,
conversation about that.
follow up question on that with the whole caring about what people think of you.
Yeah.
It seems like it's easier for you to not care what people think of you because you own your own business. But if for my case, kind of have to care what people think of me
Hey Ben,
for work reasons.
I have a question. So you have when you own a business, um, that makes it so you don't care what people think. So if you don't own a business, then you care what people think about you.
I'm saying mostly for my work, I gotta care what people think of me at work to keep my job.
But if you're good at your job, why do you have to care about what they think?
Because he works in the
Because when
RV
you work,
factory, Mary Jo.
I used to work there too.
Right. But
because
you
I'm not
used to be
Amish.
Amish.
Well, I
The
wasn't.
only reason I have a job right now is because I cared what people think of me.
So there's a lot of politics, Mary Jo, in the RV factory.
I'm aware.
So, so, um, so, a lot of, I don't know what it is, 60, 70% of the people are going to be Amish. And there was, a young Amish lady, girl,
85% at
85%.
ours.
And so there was a young Amish gal, and she was cleaning the trailers, and she had, on the assembly line, and she was like being upset with Ben because he wasn't keeping up. When Ben had other positions, other roles, then he went ahead and he helped other people around him. So if he got his work done, he'd help other people. He has not found that to be the case. Even with people he helped, they won't help him. So he went ahead and lit that young lady up. And he went ahead and said, you know what? You want to switch jobs? I'll switch jobs with you. Come over here and help me. I mean, he lit her up. So he violated one of the rules in the Amish. And what is that?
Avoid Amish women because they're scary.
Okay.
That was a joke, kind of. All right, trying to
No,
add some mood.
yeah. So what he did is he violated a rule. He went ahead and confronted a young Amish girl. Everybody looked at him and like, you don't do that. And he's like, I have four sisters. like, you know what? And so,
She
you
loves
know,
me now, by the way.
oh, okay. Oh, that's another good lesson that's another good lesson that women will respect you when you call them out on their stuff. They might not like you, but they might love you if you can make it through it. And so there's a lot of politics everywhere. And so questions, I guess, Ben.
No, I just like to, yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I got a lot of politics playing in work right now, and so,
So I
uh,
think that the Amish, like if your coworkers listen to this podcast, now if they listen to another podcast, they might not, they might think whatever. If they listen to this, there's tremendous respect. I mean, the Baptists, you were raised Baptist, so you were raised more conservative than the Amish are. You didn't have Roomspringer. I mean, not officially. like, like, yeah. you couldn't do certain things. You were raised in a home that was more strict in many ways than the Amish were. So there's tremendous respect for the Amish and their way of life, their culture, their belief system, their work ethic. You have tremendous reverence and respect for how hard they work and how fast they work. And so, like, if they're going to take a little segment and listen to one podcast or one piece of one podcast, they might judge you, and that's up to them to do. If they come on, so if anybody gives you a hard time, you say, come on and join us. And if they're, so they talk often, especially young men, they talk a big game. They talk tough and rough. And especially if they've got a bunch of their friends around them. So invite them to join us with a whole bunch of their friends, and let's have an honest conversation. And we can talk about, observations and about, what are their passions and what do they want in life. Does that make sense, Ben? And you said you had a couple other things?
No, that's fine. You
Okay.
covered it all in one time. Good job.
All right. Hey, you're welcome.
Awesome, Dad.
Hannah, I love that you're still on. Questions or thoughts that you have?
Not right now.
So would you like your life changed today forever, Hannah?
Hopefully for the good, yes.
Right. That's what, yeah. No. Would you like your life changed from this podcast forever?
Yes.
And do you care about other people?
Yes.
And so if those two things were true, then you would give me permission to go into two topics that you probably won't give me permission to go into, which I'm fine with.
Well, it depends on what the topics are.
Oh, the two topics. There's two topics that you have put little signs up and said, Mark, go anywhere except to these two topics. And me being a 3-year-old boy, what do I want to do? Go right directly there. So Hannah, I think something deep, deep within you as a woman, you want somebody to go into those two areas like crazy. And I think subconsciously, that I'm a 3-year-old boy. So if you tell me not to do something, I don't go there. I want to go there. Like really, it's like you're teasing and taunting me. You're tempting me. You're saying, Mark, go into these two areas. And, do it on a podcast that's recorded for 8 billion people, because there's other people that have those same topics and that have those same things. Then they want help. And by you being vulnerable, by you being transparent, you could help all these other people all around the world. So one thing you're probably going to learn about me, Hannah, is what?
What's a nice way of saying you can be a little fishy?
I can be what?
A little pushy.
A fishy?
Pushy.
I think in the, wow. That's what Luke said. I mean, something about,
but I'm not alone.
Yeah, no, you're not alone. Yeah. Oh, my wife, if she and I have an argument, I'll bring it to a podcast. Michael's wife is probably like that too.
That's funny.
Why is that funny?
Just because it's new to me, I guess.
What's that? What's new to you?
All the podcasts and the live Zooms
right.
like this.
Right. So, it's interesting with women. Hannah thinks it's funny that I'm bringing our problems to a podcast. I don't know that Rosanna thinks it's funny. So it's cool that Hannah thinks it's funny. Rosanna, I think you're on. What do you think about that technique that I use, that if we have a If we have an argument, bring it to a podcast.
I'm not always a fan of that
Why is that? Why do you think you're not a fan of it? And I'm like a raving fan.
because you like conflict. I don't.
See, this is a conversation my wife and I have had. So for years, I thought that the amiable didn't like conflict. But she actually likes she loves conflict. I don't. So the reason, if any of you are curious, in the last podcast we did two podcasts ago, I was teaching a bunch of women how to be curious. They're not really learning that lesson so well. So what would be, if you were curious, ladies, what would be something, you can't just say I'm curious, like you're not God, you can't just speak it in. You have to show you're curious. So what would be something curious, a question that you would ask about that?
Why would she say that, Mark?
Why would she say what? That I like conflict?
That she likes conflict and you don't.
Oh, why do I say that? Because she
Yeah.
creates a lot of conflict. Oh my goodness. Like she will do things that purposely irritate me, I think just to get my attention, just to create conflict. I was thinking you were going to ask, so Mark, why do you bring conflict in your marriage to a podcast? Like, I would think that would be an interesting, curious, like, why do you do that, Mark? Like Michael's like,
Yep, I go. That
like
probably
Michael's
wouldn't
like,
be
I don't,
a good family. That probably wouldn't be a good family practice in our household.
right?
So you're right. I wouldn't do a podcast.
Yeah, Michael's like, really? Like,
I could get the dynamics because I know that you like, almost like public opinion about, okay, well, this is how I feel about it. This is how, Roseanne happens to feel about it. What do you guys all think?
well, and what's interesting, Michael, is what does like Rosanna has a perspective and I have a perspective, and on the podcast, everybody's going to go to whose perspective? Rosanna's.
Probably Roseanne.
Yeah, everybody. So why would I go ahead and want everybody ganging up on me, Michael?
Because you like that conflict. We're back to that conclusion again, and I kind of concur.
What a surprise. You and Rosanna agree on something. Like, wow, that's shocking. So, no, it's not that I like conflict. She likes conflict. I'm willing to do conflict to get the results that come from conflict.
That's probably true. Yes, I agree.
With her, I think she just likes conflict. I think so. So why is it, Mark, that you bring up, Mark, why do you bring up problems in your marriage on a podcast? That's a good question.
Do you think it's funny?
Why? what do you?
Seems like every time you bring it up, you're laughing.
Ah.
And Mom's not laughing. Ironically, right?
So this is my experience. My wife behaves a lot better in front of people than she does just with me. So if I bring up conflict in front of other people, she'll be nice. She'll act like an adult, and we'll have a conversation. We'll be like grown-ups, and it's resolved. It's like it's all fine.
But you made fun of me at my birthday dinner for doing that.
What do you mean?
Publicly bringing up issues in front of people.
Okay, yeah.
I was pulling a Mark Boersma.
So what's your question?
Am I allowed to make fun of you then?
Oh, absolutely. What? I've never even known anybody that had permission for that.
Stop being a little wuss. be a man and bring it up when there's not people around. You know, if you need to just do it so that you want to feel better about yourself, then
Well, it's not feeling better. See, that's the thing that Ben and Rosanna and Michael and a bunch of other people who all go ahead and come together. And it's fine. You can attack the alpha male. It's fine. It's just you're just not like in Lion King. And so it's not about my feelings, okay? I know that you and my brother Ken tried to seduce me into you guys' world where my feelings were really important. And it's like it's not about the feelings. It's about getting things resolved at a core level so Rosanna can do everything she was created to do and be, and I can do everything I was created to be and do. And we're not dealing with stuff that I think probably should be resolved in the first year or two of marriage. And so people act differently individually than they do publicly, which is why there's not an alignment. With me, it's pretty much I act the way I act on a podcast. I act that same way individually. Does that make sense, Ben, or not so much?
yeah, it makes sense how you got out of this one.
Each time, right?
Yep.
Someday you too. So it's interesting because
Hopefully you're alive when that happens.
There's an earlier podcast we had, like I was playing pickleball, and craziest story. You got to listen to that. I'm not going to go through the whole story, but I was sharing there where Rosanna, I don't know, we were probably 20 years married, I'm guessing at the time. And she got ticked at me, really angry, really upset with me. And so she brought all 7 of the kids in, and it was 7-on-1. So there were 8 or 8-on-1. So there was 8 against me. Is that a fair fight?
No, they should have brought more.
Well, that's what the guy said at the pickleball. I said, "Is that a fair?" No, it's not enough. So it's 8-on-1, and they didn't win. So what did she do then? Then she got really ticked, and she's like, "Fine, you're not going to listen. I'm going to bring all 22 employees." So now it's 30-on-1. Is that a fair fight?
Yeah, she would have been better one-on-one.
Well, right. But when it gets public, now all of a sudden it's like, so what's really going on here? And what's interesting is I don't think that we have any issues, do we, Rosanna? 1 to 10, how would you rate our marriage right now?
Probably a 9.
Okay. And what's one thing you love about our marriage?
Our dates.
Okay. And well, so 1
You
to
spending
10.
money. Wow. No, I'm joking.
What's that?
I didn't know I was on. Never mind. I didn't know
So-
I was not on mute.
So,
You didn't.
so on a 1 to 10, I would rate our marriage a 10 right now. And what would be one thing you think we could do to improve our marriage, Rosanna?
I would think it would be me understanding you better.
So everybody's like, "Oh, what a great wife she is. Wow, Mark's so lucky." Like, wow. And she's such a saint. She puts up with Mark. So why do you think, like she just has this natural capability to win everybody over? It's crazy. It's so cool. It's so neat. So why do you think that would make our marriage better?
Because then I would know what you were thinking more often instead of me thinking you're thinking something else.
Interesting. Anybody have any questions for Rosanna or I?
Do women really want to understand their significant others more?
Yes and no. They do deeply. So a man is going to get a lot of his self-value, his self-worth from his occupation, from his economic engine, from his job, from his company. It's how he's created. It makes sense. You want the economic engine to really, you got to have it flowing. So it's wired. I believe it's how God created men to be. Not all men all the time. I'm just saying as a general rule. So for people who, are ignorant, when I say something, I'm not saying 100% of women, 100% of men, 100% of the time. I'm saying here are general things I've seen and experienced in my 60 years on this planet. And so generally, women will gather a whole bunch of their self-confidence, self-esteem, value as a woman from their relationship with their husband. So women are at a distinct disadvantage. They're vulnerable. My mom told me this. They're vulnerable to men. They're more vulnerable to a man than a man is to a woman, because if a woman doesn't have a good relationship, it goes at the very core and essence of who she is as a woman. Not 100% of the women, 100% of the time. I'm just saying, as a general rule, this has been my observation in life. And so it's a wise husband, it's a wise man to understand that and help your wife, your significant other, to make sure that she is very safe and secure in that relationship. But she needs to grow, because you're growing, hopefully, as a husband. And if you both aren't growing, it doesn't mean you both have to be equal. And in things, you're both equal you're both creating God's image, in the image of God. You're both equal in that perspective, but you're different, men and women. I remember my mom, she went in and heard about Harvard or some big school getting like $6 million grant from the government, researching boys and girls and the difference between them. And their results came that boys and girls are different. She said, the government could have just asked me that, and I could have told them that as a mom of, 4 boys and 2 girls. And so having that difference is very, very important. So 1 to 10, I'd say we're a 10. What do I like most about our marriage? Right now, what I like most about our marriage is that I have the confidence in my wife that I can bring up things in our marriage publicly, and it's fine. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm not going to pay a price afterwards. I'm not going to, she understands this is Mark. He's concerned. So the advice I was giving Hannah is advice I'm taking in my own life, where I'm making myself vulnerable to help other people. And Rosanna, I don't know if she allows me to do it. She doesn't discourage me, let's say. I don't know that she encourages me to bring our stuff public, but she doesn't discourage me. I mean, we missed our podcast for marriages yesterday, so we're getting it in today. And so I like that. What could be one thing to improve? I think it's a continued, I'm like a 3-year-old boy. And so I think Rosanna being a 3-year-old girl, a desire, a passion to grow and become who we will be, to not become complacent, to not become like we've arrived, is to have a continued hunger to be better, both of us. So that's what I would say. All right, so we're finished with this podcast. Now we go into the next segment, which is a free for all. Before we do that, Michael, great to have you on. Hopefully it was beneficial. Do you have any thoughts, questions, insights on today's 2 podcasts that you sat in on?
Oh, it's interesting. I guess it's interesting discussions to kind of uncover, kind of deeper truths. And I think that you do a good job of not just surfacing things, but drilling down a little bit further and kind of challenging, people in a good way, and a little bit uncomfortable way sometimes, but in a good way. So anyway, it was actually enjoyable being on just to kind of get back in the rhythm a little bit of things, and I enjoyed the book review and the book itself, and I I appreciate having an opportunity to listen in.
Cool. Well, good to have you for sure. And I love that you were able to participate the first time in a podcast. Do you have any thoughts, questions, ideas, anything at all that you'd like to share?
So no, other than
Sorry,
I'm a
sorry,
little
sorry. That
excited.
was Hannah for Hannah. So, Hannah, do you have anything you'd like to share?
No.
Why are you giggling?
I was just thinking, I think in the future I would like to do a podcast about that with you, but just not today.
Well, no, it's totally okay. It's totally okay and it's fine. And there's not pressure or anything like that. I think it's for other people's benefits. Like you don't know me very well. Like we have known each other for a month, a couple months, I don't know, not a very long time. And so, here you are trusting and jumping on a podcast, and here you are where I know, some pretty, I don't know, intimate, close, tight things that, are at your heart level. And I'm not going to expose those publicly. I'm going to encourage you because I think it's a part of, your growth, your healing, whatever. Um, and so I think a lot of times we don't share things because we're afraid. And I think so when Rosanna, it's taken her a while to get comfortable or, whatever with, hey, we have issues, we have a fight. You know what? We'll go ahead and bring it up on a podcast. It seems to be resolved faster. It seems to not have a hold on our marriage. It seems to where we rebooted and it's like we're back on track. Mary Jo was asking about dimensional in the previous podcast. I don't know. We do like 5 podcasts Friday, Saturday morning, one right after another, maybe 6. And Mary Jo on the dimensional next dimension principle, she was talking about like how do I know in my relationship with her fiance, how does she know like what dimension she's in? And I'm like, yeah, I haven't figured that out. And so that would be a cool thing. And so I believe that when people are transparent, it takes away a lot of fear. And Cheryl was or Elaine, maybe Cheryl or Elaine, one of the two, were talking about um, fear and how it holds them back. And I think that does with a lot of us. Melissa, good to have you on. Anything you have? If you're talking, you're on mute. Is Ginger Ann on? Seems like there's more than one 630 area code. Elaine, anything you have?
No, I don't think so. It's good to listen in, and I do agree that fear takes a hold of you most of the time if you're not willing to share or be open.
Yeah, we were talking that if you're, in a like what's sad is often the people we're closest to, we don't feel comfortable sharing and being vulnerable with.
Well, would that be because those are often the people that hurt you the most?
Well, I think it's that. I think that people hurt us the most, and it's like they can weaponize things without even realizing it. And so like Rosanna said the other day, I don't know, a week or so, a couple of weeks ago, and she said to me, she said, I want to know how I've hurt you the last 40 years. Like, what? Like, what? Like, she's never said that in 40 years of marriage. I'm like, why now? Things are good. We're like nines and tens. Why would you want to do something like that? And so I think that answers Mary Jo's question. Does a woman really want to? She does and she doesn't. So we're at a really good place in our marriage. Holy cow. So why mess that up? Why put it at risk? And so there's a part of Rosanna that she's going to have an easier time becoming complacent, becoming accepting of where we're at. Me, I'm just not. It's like it's not wired in me or something. I don't know what it was. Maybe growing up in Wisconsin, right, Michael? It's like, and so it's like, so I think what it is I think what it is I think Rosanna is like the marriage is in a great place, but if we're not growing, it can quickly go into a downward spiral and it can become really messy and ugly. And it's like, really? And so what I think, is doing, I think, is she's stretching herself before the reality is stretching her. And I think that she will find that to be very, very rewarding. And I think she will find that our marriage is better, that we're not going to have the roller coasters that we've struggled with, for 40 years. I think that there'll be some up and down, obviously, but there's not going to be the big ones. But it's going to be continually going up. And so, like, initially I was cynical. Now I'm like, maybe she is serious and she is driving it forward, that particular piece. So, Mary Jo, anything you have?
Not at the moment.
Rosanna, anything you have?
I think I'm good.
Anybody else have anything else? So
Just wanted to let you know that you're appreciated on these calls.
I'm appreciated.
Yes, you are.
Well, thank you. Well, that's very sweet. Hi, girls.
Want to say hi to Grandpa?
I didn't get to see you today. Where are my girls? Well, there they are. Oh, my goodness. How are you, honey? Oh, you have a book, a fun book.
Do you want to say hi to Grandpa too?
Hi, honey. Hi. I know you got things to do. Yep. So it's interesting. So it's funny because I told Ben, he says, well, Dad, what if people, hear? What if people listen to it? I'm like, oh, don't worry. Nobody listens to these. And now they are. And it's like, so I think most people do podcasts to get attention, maybe. Yeah, not so much with me. Like, I think mine is for growth and the growing of people around me. So if you have any questions on this, connect with the individual who invited you to participate, or you can call toll-free 888-230-2300 outside the U.S. 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.